So that's enough from me. Now I'm going to pass it over to Birgit, who is our Naples-based NetSquared ambassador and super person around the community, who really has been a real support across much of the network. Take it away.
Well, hello everybody, and thank you for participating in this office hours. Well, I'm from Naples, and I'm a co-organizer here at Tech for Good in Southwest Florida, and I've been an ambassador for NetSquared since 2015. And today, as Eli announced on the Facebook group, and so we're talking about marketing your group and how to grow your group and how to keep the people that come to first time, how to keep them in. It was a little hard pressed for me to prepare this. Not that I don't know how to market or how I would do it for me, but also to find a way to get all the localities and the different kind of local intricacies fit into a presentation. So I thought, okay, probably it'd be easier if we go around the room, do a roll call, so to speak, and so what's your name and which organization, where you are, and then tell us what's your biggest challenge in marketing your group. Yeah, what have you tried and what didn't work as well, so we can talk about it. And then I was hoping that my partner in these office hours, Edna, would actually make it across town to from her work to her private computer, so we could do it together. But it does not seem to be working out right now. She might have joined us in about 10 minutes or so, or even later. But so we get her European, African view, or how she works with African groups as well in there. So I think we should just kind of go around the room. And I like this, if you are on the web screen, and have your video on, we have about 12 people in it, and you would see everybody with their names, but but some of us are actually on audio only, so they can see you. So if you would just kind of start out, and Mary, if you want to, you could start with your name and what group you are and what your biggest challenge is to market your group.
Okay, sure. I'm Mary Prouty, and I'm the community organizer in NetSquared Fort Collins. I just started the group up in February. I think I held my first meeting in April. My next meeting is tomorrow, and it's around the Story Makers event. Yay! And I got a pretty good speaker. I met him yesterday, and he came by to look at the venue and just look at all the technical issues. And I'm really excited about him. I think he's really good speaker.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wish I could get more people to come. I've only got about, I think, 5 or 6 people on Meetup that have RSVP'd.
You were a little bit breaking up. Well, how many people?
I've only had about 6 people respond, but the Meetup the membership is 63 people. So I don't think I don't know if I'm not reaching them, and I did take the summer off, so this is the first Meetup I'm having since June.
Okay.
Just starting up. So I think just getting my group engaged and figuring out what interests them and trying to address those things is maybe one of my biggest challenges.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Who's next? Bea?
Okay, sure. My name is Bea Stryker. I'm helping with the group. Can you hear me?
I think we need to mute the people.
Yeah,
Eli. Yeah, I got a lot of feedback.
Good.
It's
Can you
much
try
better
that
now.
again?
Much better, yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm B Striker. I am in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is basically central Virginia. We're an hour south of Charlottesville, where UVA is, and there's quite a few universities and colleges around here. I belong to the DC one, the DC group, and it is an amazing group. And every time I've been, of course, they have meetings very frequently, and I only get up there maybe 2 or 3 times. It's so inspirational. I said, we have to do this down here where I live, because I've always volunteered with nonprofits for years and years and years. And so the problem, I teach at a local college, and I just thought that would be a natural launching point. I have my students actually being in this, we have 3 scheduled. We had one last week. And the students, of course, really learned a lot, and they got it. And but we're, clearly we had our first one ever last week, and so we just have to grow the business. I do another meetup. It's in golfing, and we have like 120 members, but only 4 or 5 show up ever. So it's typical of meetups is that people just join, but don't actually attend. At least the meetup people, we have a way of communicating with them. So that gang, I think over time, I'm confident we're going to grow the meetup group. It's the nonprofits that I really see a problem engaging with. So that's, I think, just from experience with meetup. There's lots of ways you can contact the people. And then they tend to spread the word among their friends. But the nonprofits always have an excuse for everything. Because I work with nonprofits. So that's where my worry is. That's where I'm hear from you what you think.
Okay. Yeah. And who's next? Imani?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Imani Maleka. I'm CEO of a STEM nonprofit here in Kansas City. I haven't had any problems because I haven't had my first meetup yet. So I'm very optimistic that I won't have any problems. But I certainly intend to market our meetup to nonprofit groups that are here. There is a fundraising group for nonprofits, and I certainly intend to contact them. And I really believe in creating affinity groups, which are groups that will have some interest or some connection to the topics that we'll be talking about. So I'll be looking at a lot of different things, social media, people who do fundraising for nonprofits, and just go to those affinity groups and make my introduction, tell them what we're doing, and invite them to participate, and even ask them to be presenters, they will also bring the people that are in their group.
Excellent. Yes.
Smart. See, those are all the tips there.
Yeah.
we're halfway there. Perfect.
Himani, do you can think of a particular challenge that you would like to tap into the wisdom of the group here?
I just don't anticipate any problems. Maybe that's my naivete at this point. And I guess I won't have any problems until I run into them. But right, I really believe in being very proactive and reaching out to those groups that may have even a marginal connection to what NetSquared has to offer. I'm not waiting for the people to come to me. I'm definitely going to go out and network and get to know people and invite them to participate.
Excellent. Yes. So the next would be I might butcher your name. It's Alua Wafanmito or Femi.
Oluwafumito. Hello?
Yes, we hear you,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Oluwafumito, that's the name. Or you can just call me Funto.
Funto?
Just okay. Yeah, Funto, yeah, that's a lot better.
So, from where are you calling in?
I'm calling from Nigeria. Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the group, so I think I came across Meetup this month. And I've already had a Skype interview with Eli, and basically I'm just in the process of starting. Looking for a venue, talking to a couple of friends. So I'm based in Abuja, which is the capital of the country. So I'm still looking at getting a venue and then starting up on my own meetings. So for challenges, I think I'm already envisaging like getting poor responses, although I'm still hopeful that I can get some people who will be interested to being a part of what I'm planning out. So I'm thinking I'll start with my local organization, with my NGO. So I'm a volunteer at an international non-profit, and I'm hoping I can start out with our staff and fellow volunteers.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So good luck with your putting your first meetup together, Imani as well. But and who's next? Is that Alicia? Letitia? Letitia? You're muted, Alicia.
Unmute, hang on.
Yes.
I don't know how to unmute.
Well, you're now unmuted.
Yay!
Yay! You're driving. Are you driving?
I'm in mobile office.
But are you driving?
No, I am actually just parking. Now that I have to speak. It's all right. Don't worry, I won't be naughty. So I am here in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. That's south central Wisconsin. It's kind of the middle top of USA. And my biggest trouble with getting people engaged is to find the nonprofits. My meetup group has a great collection of possible presenters and co-organizers, people who know things about technology, how to use it. They're developers, they're interested in the community, but it's the people that actually might not know how to use the technology that don't come to my meetups or my events. So I've tried working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Main Street, trying to get a list of those nonprofits and contact them. My personal emails get zero response. So do my, independent ads. Basically, the best I can do is get somebody like face to face, and then I always forget my business cards, so I rarely hear back from them.
Okay. So also the part of challenge had to get the nonprofits, one of the target audience for our meetups in there. Bruce Roxburgh, you're next.
Yep. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes, we hear you a little bit faint.
A little bit faint, sorry.
It's probably better now. Try it again, Bruce.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm up in Peterborough. I have similar issues. I've been doing the group as co-organizer for Peterborough in Ontario. So that's an hour and a half north of Toronto since 2014, and it's my group keeps growing. Like you just finished saying, Birgit, I believe it was you that said that the groups will grow, and one of the other participants. So we find that it's just sort of people joining a meetup for just to join a meetup, and I've got some really interesting people, and they show up once and then they don't show up again. People that are software developers. We've got a couple of different groups here. So I think we have over 300 members, and we've only got, it's a city of 80,000. So it's not too bad, but and bigger regional pull. So probably say 200,000 regional pull, population pull. But the issue we have is just reaching some sort of critical mass to get people to meetings. 3 or 4 people showing up to a meeting where you've busted your hump and grabbed somebody's nice gift of a few dollars to help coordinate or help solicit some or buy some beer or whatever it is, and you just find it's sort of demoralizing. But that's not to say that I'm a party pooper. I'm a fairly big optimist, but it's been a bit of a slog there. So my biggest thing is simply to go back and see what things I prepped and people didn't show up for, and decide why and whether it's worth redoing those, because a lot of those are things that are common across other NetSquared groups, and just sort of make it happen again and do a bit of a different job of organizing. I actually had one guy that had blending to this sort of group idea. One guy that came out to the group and he said, critical mass is actually not the number of people there, it's the number of people organizing it. And he said with one person organizing it, it's always a slog and you're always doing something. With 3 people doing it and one person sort of going out and doing something each time, it just seems to be a difference. So I thought that
Amen,
was
brother.
Okay, buddy didn't show up for more than 2 sessions. I guess he didn't want to be volunteered or voluntold, but
yeah.
I'm glad to be invited here, and I'll mute myself so that I don't give you guys grief in my backyard here.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. And who's next? Lawrence? Lawrence Beasley? Oh, Lawrence is writing. He's in 2 different meetings.
Right. Well, so here, I'll give you actually, while he was doing that, here's what he submitted by text a little earlier for those who don't have the text chat up. So he's one of the co-organizers in Las Vegas. And he says participation in a highly transient locale like Las Vegas is a little bit challenging. Finding speakers is easy, but this isn't really a tech town and the community is highly splintered. So that to me is part of the challenge, which is just to say speakers are easy, but again, convening a critical mass of the community sounds like his challenge.
Okay, good. And then we also have Ali said Kamburuta. And we don't hear you. All right. Well, if she gets online, then we'll do her introduction as well.
Sorry.
Okay, Ali. Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Ali Saidi Kamburuta from Tanga, Tanzania. And I am NetSquared organizer for Pangani. Yes, my name is Ali Saidi from Pangani, Tanga, Tanzania.
Yes,
I am a NetSquared organizer for Pangani, and I've been leading the group since 2015, and together with the support from Edna, I started organizing the group when the ambassador for East Africa was Robert Kibaya, and then now our ambassador is Edna Karamagi, and I am running the NetSquared Pangani, but also I'm supporting my fellow NetSquared organizers in other regions of Tanzania. Like currently we have Dar es Salaam, we have Lake Zone, and soon we'll have a new NetSquared group in Dodoma, the capital of Tanzania. The biggest challenge. Yes, please
go ahead.
Come up.
Go ahead.
Come up, Birgit.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
Your biggest challenge.
Yes, the biggest challenge in running these organized meetups in Tanzania, or maybe in Pangani in particular, We are, for instance, I, for one, I am a veterinary expert. Therefore, I'm trying to how to make the use of technology to my most close clients to me. Those are farmers and livestock keepers. And therefore, I'm trying to make them how they can use technology to easier their livestock keeping, like checking the price of their products. For instance, livestock keepers do sell live animals, and they'll need price for the animal all the time before sending the animal to the auction. But we have local auctions of which they can access the price before. Also, they are selling their milk, they are selling other agricultural products, but doing it manually is giving them a hard time. And therefore, what I'm trying to train them is how they can use technology to easier their livestock keeping. Also, how they can use technology to access some information which are vital to their livestock keeping, like managerial of their animals, management of the animals, and the disease control. Therefore, you don't get all the people all the time. One big challenge is you get new people all the time. Therefore, today you have these few farmers, and tomorrow, for instance, today you have farmer number 1, farmer number 2, farmer number 3, and farmer number 4. Next time when you meet them, only number 1 and number 4 come. Number 2 and number 3 are missing, and therefore you are getting new, two new, and therefore we have some challenges of that kind. Also, for instance, other meetups. For instance, there is some meetup. There is some meetup is organized in the university. It is in Kampala International University, Dar es Salaam Center. To obtain students also to participate in our meetup, sometimes we meet challenges of their class schedules. They have some tight schedules. They have to attend some university classes and so forth and so forth. But we are trying to explain to them how they can use technology that they can easier on their studying. That's what we are currently doing and what are the challenges we are meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much for letting us in there. There's some very unique challenges every locality. So I wanted to address, I think we have a few fields that we can discuss. One is what's critical mass, and the other one is, what Imani spoke of, that how to connect with your affinity groups, or what are the affinity groups that we can connect with in terms of reaching nonprofits. And the next one is how to keep those that come once to kind of come back. Is one of them also. Okay, so when I started out, and I admit it was a little longer ago, but in 2008, in Naples, I learned about NetSquared as well as N10 501 tech clubs. And I thought, and I was volunteering for a nonprofit that was a nonprofit internet service provider and had always been working with nonprofits, so there was a little contact already there. So I thought, okay, that would be a good monthly meeting to have, and I scheduled it. I connected with the local community foundation. I connected with the nonprofits that I knew of, and said, okay, we're gonna do this. And I scheduled the first meeting. Nobody showed up. I scheduled the second meeting on a different day and a different time and a different location. Nobody showed up. And then I scheduled it a third time, again with a different day, a different time, and a different location. And nobody showed up. Talking about frustration. And I got the message. I said, okay, seems this community is not ready for that. It's not high on the priority, so why go through this? And I did something else. In 2013, 5 years later, I attended N10's Nonprofit Technology Group conference in Minneapolis. And I ran into Eli at the TechSoup booth, and we started talking, and he gave me some good tips. And then I also connected with Bethany Lister and fellow organizers. And well, the group actually energized me to say, okay, maybe now is the time to do this. And I went back, so the conference was in April, I went back, and in July in 2013, I sent out a note, and about 15 people came. So it needs to be right for the community. It's not necessarily also who you know, but that's one thing, but it's also, is technology so in the forefront of the pain points, where does it hurt? That you got the message right or you don't, but it's not so much what you do, it's more where everybody else is. And then I got the whole frustration again that our group grew to 250 people in the meetup. And normally we have between 12 and 28 people, 32 people kind of show up. It really depends. And then I kind of looked at that, okay, what does it depend on? And I can only talk from my group, what I know here in our area, and from some of the ideas that I got from other organizers. I had contacts with the local community foundation, and they like what we do, and they let me use, and they made the list of organizations that they support public on their website, and they gave me that Excel spreadsheet, and that's probably a group of about 200 people, 200 organizations. It's not all the organizations in the area, but it's just the organizations that the Community Foundation works with. And I went through the emails and just added them to my email group. I did not depend on Meetup alone. What I found is that quite a few people, when you say you can connect with people on Meetup, I found this in my region here, it does not quite work that well. It works in a different meetup, which is a WordPress user group, but not on the nonprofit side. Most nonprofits, either staff members that we connect with, are either not using Meetup, or when they are Meetup, they only get the notification about the announced meetups, but they have opt out on the email notifications from the organizers. So once we found that out, I went through the additional effort to create a MailChimp account and add people to the email list. And then one of our Meetup co-organizers, kind of leadership team, is actually a local PR person. She also does communication as a freelancer for nonprofits. And she has a long list of media contacts. And what I find is, if I give her enough lead time, minimum 2 weeks, but better is 4 weeks on my planning, she can actually send out a little note to the media to put this on their monthly calendars on clubs and the meetings. But it really takes some planning. Yeah, it's against my nature to schedule things 2, 3, 4, or 6 months ahead of time. But I have found that has increased our local reach quite extensive, not extensively, that it's kind of huge, but it gives us a fair amount of people that show up almost every time. So we have roughly about 18 people that come every time, and then whoever comes on top of that, be it 10 people more or 2 people more, they come through the media announcements or through the email list because they are interested in the topic. So that kind of is the audience that I have here. We did so we had meetups where we had 40 people, 50 people. And when I went back and talked we did a survey after 2 years, said, okay, for those of you who were in its meetup, rank all the 24 meetups that we had in topics, if you had got the most out of it. Where implementation, you got actionable advice, or you went back and energized and do stuff. And and what we found is that the largest meeting that we as organizers feel they are very successful because there are 40 people there, they get a buzz in the community going, that the people that were in the meeting actually didn't feel they get that most out of it. So the value added for those meetings were less than we had feeling-wise, kind of emotional-wise, or for our organizer. So that made me and my co-organizer and those that are in leadership shift a little in our perception, how we deal with our own frustrations or how we deal with our own expectations, how big a meeting must be, and said, you know what, if 3 people show up and those 3 people get a lot out of our meetings, we were successful. And that is kind of what does success look like. I don't think that that's the approach for everybody. And and I saw your note, Mary, that you said you spend 20 hours preparing a meeting and only one person shows up. That's really frustrating. I hate that when that happens. And it's just so, they all need this, but then they don't come and think it themselves. It's just, that's so frustrating. And I'm glad that you're not kind of giving up, but to kind of say, okay, I need to push, but don't push more. More than 20 hours for meetings, that's, I now normally spend between 5 and 8 hours to get an organize a meeting from idea to follow-up meetings. So that's kind of that part of what success looks like, what's the frustration in people showing up. It necessarily does not have to do with yourself. We found that the Community Foundation was helpful at the beginning, but it's not an ongoing thing. They have other priorities. And with the market going up and down of their funds, they do different things. I find what we found was when the leadership team comes together and promotes it on social media, on their own Facebook and on their personal Facebook pages, as well as through the print media. I hate to say it, but print media still is pretty powerful. So that was that part. What did I forget? So thank you, Eli, for being a very good resource in the chat window here. He posted right at the beginning 2 links. One was to the social media sharing kit. I think using that and approach people in terms of you've come to our meetings, now help us promote it, is certainly something that we have been very successful in. But what I do and my co-organizer does was we talk to people personally. So it's not an email that goes out via MailChimp or via Meetup. It's our personal email to 2 people max in the to field to make it very personal to help us out. That it's the personal relationship. It's going to be so much more successful. And you only need 2 people to amplify the message if you use social media or private email lists. But Eli has put a great social media sharing kit in the links. Also the poster template and some postcards. That is just tool on the organizer wiki spaces. I have found every month, once in a while, I think even after 4 years now, every 2 or 3 months I go back to the wiki pages on NetSquared and read up about things, and I get a few hints and very good thoughts that I stand on on the shoulders of giants for that. So it's really important to that you go there.
Yeah, but of course the handbook wiki is a little bit of an untamed garden. So if you need someone to basically give you a direct link to the right page, I'm always happy to basically be your Google search and send you to the appropriate page within the wiki.
And a little tip, Eli responds to Slack messages. He responds to every message on every kind of thing, but Slack is, and if you do it publicly in the general,
Well, that's odd. So it looks like the rest of us are not frozen. Oh,
okay.
And she's back. Amazing. You were just frozen for the last 5 seconds. Welcome back.
And I got from Zoom the message that my internet connection is unstable. Yeah. So I think we are still dealing with some of the hurricane issues here that we had in the last 2 weeks, with cell phone power going out, internet going out, water being boiled and restricted. So I'm sorry about that. Eli also put in the chat window the link to the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And another one is the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network. Those are 2 organizations that have a national organization as well as local chapters, and they also have, and they're really connected with the nonprofits. So if you want to connect your technology community with nonprofits, kind of organizing joint meetings is a good way to introduce each other to the audiences. And the other one is to actually ask for speakers. So we have we did what I found is that the community foundation, just to kind of they have a net of certified consultants. And I don't know if every community foundation has that, but our local one does, that they say to nonprofits, if you apply for this grant and one of these consultants is part of your planning group, you can bypass some of the rating kind of things for your grant, for our grants. So what we do is we because with my company, I'm also part of that group, I use the list of consultants and say, okay, we have this topic. From what I know about you is you are a specialist in it. And we did 2 panel sessions this year where we invited those consultants. And with nonprofit consultants, they have quite a few more clients. And if they think that what you're doing in your Tech for Good meeting is helpful, and I bet every one of you does a good job to put this together, that they also let their clients know. Yeah. Not all of them, of course, but yeah, even if it's only 2 or 3, and you get a few more nonprofits into your meetings, that's certainly helpful. Okay. Yeah. So I talked a lot. Anybody else gonna have some questions or want me to go deeper at some point? Beard, you're muted.
Yeah.
There you go. You're off. Come join us.
You're off now. Good.
Off accidentally. Okay, there we are. So I have a question. We considered recording our meeting, and also we had the students actually build a website. The website I think is going to be fine because I'm sending it out to the nonprofits in the region, because we did a lot of what you just said about the nonprofit umbrella groups. So the website makes sense to me because we have podcasts on it. We put a whole bunch of stuff on it.
Wow. Yeah.
But I'm wondering if the recording of the event and sending that out would be self-defeating. If, in other words, you don't have to come because we're going to record it and here it is. The website definitely made sense, but I'm just sort of on the fence about recording it and sending it out.
And funny you mentioned that. We had our own experiences with it, and we had at the beginning of this year we had a series of using live streaming tools. So we said, okay, every meeting we use a different tool and then see how that worked out. Because you learn from other people's mistakes. If you can make the mistake in the meeting, then people who bring it back to their nonprofits, they can say, yeah, we can do this or we can't do this kind of thing. So we had one meeting that was periscoped. We had one meeting that was on Facebook Live, and we had one meeting on, we streamed it on, I think on YouTube, on Google Hangouts. And then it kind of broke down in certain ways, because talking about equipment is one thing, but you also need to be very deliberate in what you do for your online audience. And what you do for your online audience is mostly different from what you do with your face-to-face audience. So you have a split personality as a presenter. That's one hurdle. The other one is that you need a producer in the room who actually dedicates the time and effort into the camera. The microphone was a big problem, especially for Periscope and Facebook Live, because you couldn't be just in the face of people, but you need to have a microphone to project it. Yeah, so it's the question and answer kind of session coming in. And I have not found that people that knew that was recorded would actually tune in more. And I also haven't found that those who couldn't make it actually go online and do it afterwards. Watch it afterwards. So I found it really interesting that, but what we did was actually we brought people from outside. We have a finite set of good speakers for certain topics in our area that I know about, but I knew people from other areas. So we got John Hayden talk to us via webinar about email marketing, but he very experienced in doing remote webinars kind of session, talking to a live audience, which worked very well because we could field the questions. But he was very good in producing something for the first 45 minutes or something like that. And we did it a second time on Google Analytics. And those videos are actually watchable. Yeah, if you have a live event and you are not able to cut them down, cut out the longer periods of time that it takes to run a screen through something, the viewing experience is very hard afterwards. Yeah, so I wasn't really particularly excited about the live audience thing. It might be different in a metropolitan area, maybe. Yeah, it might be just our techno level here that doesn't work. But I think the biggest hurdle is the different way, the pace of performance, so to speak, with a live audience than versus a online audience, where the attention span, people are distracted, people can do their emails in between, kind of thing, don't know when to tune in again, kind of thing. Yeah, it's kind of, it's a split thing. Yeah. And of course, yeah, it defeats the purpose if it's recorded. Why show up? Yeah, and then they don't get anything out of it. Yeah, that's kind of.
So I think what we'll do is we have Zoom. We had speakers Zoom in. That's our plan for. And so I'm going to take those Zoom sessions and eliminate some of the other presentation and use that as a teaser almost in emails, like a link they can record. Because like you said, it's interesting to hear that you don't think they're watching it anyway. So even if it's just a teaser, that might work.
Yeah, that works when you can cut it down to some elements there. Well, I know the numbers of the watched. Yeah, we kind of uploaded everything on YouTube, and the numbers are not that. Yeah, we have single digits actually. Yeah, which is less than were in the meeting. So I'm not sure if the effort kind of helps there, but yeah. What else? We're coming up to an end here. It's we have got 8 minutes to go, I think, right? Any other questions, suggestions? I'm just scrolling through the chat window there.
Yeah, I want to just quickly touch on one of the things we talked about, which is to say, sometimes, especially at the beginning when we are building our groups, we are just going to have fewer attendees. And so it's really a matter of like, how do we create event templates and formats that aren't going to consume all of our time, and also take advantage of the fact that when we have a small group, we get to be hands-on in a way that we can't when we get a bigger group in the room. So we've created a couple event templates that we find are pretty easy, both for you as an organizer to put together, because they don't even need a presenter necessarily. And the other thing is they're really much more participatory, so therefore everyone gets a chance to actually share their knowledge within that space. So one of those is something we call the show and tell, which is basically lightning talks where anyone can come and say, like, here's a cool productivity tool or technique that I use on an everyday basis, and anyone can come up and do like up to a 5-minute demo. And so that's where I first learned about things like Trello or Zoom, where people just came and said, like, here's something that I think is super cool, use it all the time, makes my life easier, 5-minute demo, no slides, they really just do it real time. And I find that if you seed your event with 3 people doing that, you, 2 friends, everyone else at that point is like, okay, the ice is broken, now they jump in and want to participate as well. Another common format that we stole from people in the UK is something they call a social media surgery, or in the US, a social media tune-up is really popular. And that's essentially office hours, where you and maybe 2 other smart people who know social media show up there and say, like, we're going to hang out here for 2 hours. Whoever shows up, we commit to giving those people up to 30 minutes of one-on-one consultation as either a small group or individually. And again, so that's just really easy. No one had to create slides or do anything. And if there's fewer people, that means everyone actually gets more time to talk about things like around digital strategy or how to, start measuring your social media campaigns. So that's another really fun and easy format that, again, doesn't need you to put in a lot of sweat equity, especially when you think like, well, maybe not that many people are going to show up at the beginning.
Thank you. I find it very helpful, especially social media surgery is really something that if I don't have time, that's so easy to replicate, because there are quite some knowledge in the room that you say, okay, you take one table, you take another table, and then we have 3 tables, 15 people. Yeah, it's very easy, because the other attendees that are not getting the one-on-one, they group around that discussion anyway and learn very much from them, and they really like to listen. They don't have to come up with ideas. The last thing that I have is what I started about 2 years in, actually having consistently online session evaluations that helps us at the team to kind of see what worked, what didn't work, and it only had a few questions. I'm happy to share that. And one question, the last question is what other topics would you like to see? Mm-hmm. And once we had that, after 6, 7, 8 meetings, we would list all the comments that we get there, group them, and then come up with new topics. And most of the time we come up with 10 topics and then put them out for vote. So I have a survey that I do every 6 months that people, where we have, in the leadership is about 8 people that are in a conference call when we do this. And so we take the list, group them together and say, okay, what kind of meetings can we put together? And then we send them out to all people on the meetup. And then they vote on it. And they only let you know for each one of the topics that you suggest or that come from the other suggestions, very interested, not interested at all. And then after the period is about 2 weeks to let it run, and it takes 3 to 4 reminders to get enough participation. And then I give points. For very interested, I give 2 points for the topic. Interested is 1 point, and not interested at all, I subtract a point. Just saying, okay, I don't want people in there that are not interested at all. Yeah, so, and that gives me a very good ranking on all the topics, and then I just schedule them out. Topic 1 comes the months next, yeah, and then we kind of divide it up, who can organize which meeting, or are you interested in these kind of meetings, kind of thing, yeah. And so this fall we had actually 7 meetings because we had the storytellers in between. Yeah, I look at the monthly suggestions that come from Eli. Sometimes they are right on, or sometimes I know that they're coming. And sometimes they're a little late, like the security part. Yeah, I can't do anything in October of security, but I can put it in the list.
In. Use them if they are useful, otherwise ignore me.
That's what I wanted to say, kind of, yeah, sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. But that's kind of the, in the process of, some of you are just starting out, so having that evaluation is not giving you a lot of fodder, yeah, so but once you are in 5, 6, or 7 months meetings in, you get a good feel, and then you also can kind of tap in some of the co-organizing. Yeah, and I know that co-organizers is a really hard thing. 1 minute left, get yourself an organizer. It's my feel. And if it's not that, try to farm out some of the work that you do to somebody else. Thank you very much for coming. I'm shut up now. And I hope we can, Eli, I think, is going to do the, you copy paste the chat window?
I'll do a quick highlights of the key links and sort of put a little bit of structure around that and put that up for Friday. I'll also put up the recording of this video for people who were here and for those who weren't able to be here. I'm also able to hang out here for another 15 minutes for those who have any other questions. Otherwise, Birgit, thank you so much for all your huge contributions to this community and for sharing your experience here today. Now that we're officially over, I do want to, maybe offer a couple of advice. Do you want to stop the recording? No, I want to talk a little bit more about co-organizers, because I think it is so key. And others here talked about that as well, which is to say, when you have 2 or 3 other people, they get to, 1, extend out their own networks to bring more people into the room. But 2, of course, sometimes when you're a little bit busy, a little bit tired, someone else gets to hold the barrier. And so I open and close every single event here I do in Vancouver with a call to action, which is basically like, do you want to get involved? Come talk to me afterwards and let's bring you involved. And I don't throw everyone immediately into a co-organizer role because people are flaky and I need to give them a test. So I basically have a Google group here in Vancouver, which anyone who expresses any interest in contributing at all just gets thrown into that list. And then a week before the event, I send out a message saying hey, upcoming event, please share it out with your community. Sign up here for one of the volunteer roles on a simple doodle poll or something like that. And once people have shown themselves to be reliable, then I give them a test. I say, who wants to produce one topic 3 months from now? Like, why don't you do next February on a topic of interest to you? And if they come through and succeed on that event, and half the time they do not, so that was easy, awesome. You're like, okay, great. I didn't have an event in February. I'll be back in March. But if they succeed, then you go to that person and say, like, hey, like, want to get more involved? Wasn't that fun? So that's part of it. I always say, like, have a really low barrier to entry where anyone can come in and they're just part of the volunteer crew of people you might put at the registration desk. But then always work to pull people in from that and work them up the engagement ladder, for the nonprofit people out there. So that would be one of my top suggestions. The other thing, especially for those people who are saying, I'm struggling finding nonprofits who can be in the room, what I suggest is that you put together a super loose, what we call sometimes a brain trust or an advisory council. And so this is like 2 or 3 people who are deeply connected into their community, but maybe they're a bit too senior or busy to actually be a full co-organizer with you. But they're advocates. They're your champions out there in the community. So when I was first starting up my group, I went out and reached out to the local United Way and said, like, who is someone who knows all the local nonprofits in the world? And I talked to someone else who was super connected in to the local technology incubator and knew all like the startups and the technology people in town. And I said to those people, I'm going to send you a gentle email once a quarter, just saying, like, here's like 2 of my upcoming events. If you know someone who should be there, share it out. And otherwise, what topics should I be talking about in my group? Because they're not going to get super involved, but you're going to gently just nurture those relationships and have them be your connectors within the community to help you reach into those nonprofit communities or that technology community you haven't been able to figure out how to get in yourself. So those are my 2 recommendations for building out your wider community of people who can basically be your advocates and marketers. Does that make sense? Who here has like had some luck recruiting a co-organizer? We've got a fair number of new organizers here. So Bruce, I know you've had co-organizers and lost co-organizers. How's that process gone for you?
I guess having a co-organizer, most of the time it was good, but and the gal that we started off jointly was equally dedicated, but once it sort of fizzles, it's hard to sort of sell people at the same level. So, like my example in the introductions, you get somebody that comes to a group and says, well, you should be doing this. And then you go, okay, that sounds like a great plan. Well, when I did it, I did this. Great. And then, we don't get to sell them on being a co-organizer until they've actually done it more than once and actually understand totally what NetSquared's about. So it's kind of like you're sort of sitting there, waiting for something that never happens. It's
right.
And that's kind of a drag, but I think you just have to sort of carry on with it, and you'll find somebody that does it. There's actually somebody that coordinates another meetup that's a tech-related meetup in town, and they cross-post and do some other things. So what I may do is kind of try to sort of tag onto that a little bit. And so there's one, there's a hacker nest here, and there's a well, I know that the same group of people kind of filters into a WordPress group, and so much like every other community, but those people are into that, and they're organizing stuff, and it seems like they get better turnout. So if I can get them into who's specifically using, say, WordPress, like we do a lot of, and that then that'd be okay. But yeah, I haven't had a lot of success trying to find somebody new. because people don't see that as their role, I don't think.
Yeah.
So that I meet, there's one or two that have good suggestions, but they don't really buy into that role.
They're not quite there for it yet. So I think I love that growth hacking suggestion of talk with another successful meetup in town and say, within your topic area, why don't we do an event that's joint? And so like we'll bring in a nonprofit case study into the WordPress group, or we'll go to the Google Technologies meetup and talk about Google for nonprofits within that. And so you can sort of basically combine these two communities and steal some of their members by doing this joint event. The other thing, Bruce, I think is I really do encourage people to do that multi-tier engagement level, because to put a lot of energy into a potential co-organizer, knowing that at least half the time they're going to flake out. It's just the law of averages. I really like to say, like, yeah, here's something that's really on the side, and if they don't come through, you're like, no harm, no foul. But give people, these opportunities to get involved in a small way, so you can work their way up to a deeper level of engagement, knowing that most of the time it will fail, but sometimes it will succeed.
Yeah, I have the same experience. Yeah, I started out with a very good friend of mine, and we kind of co-organized it, or he became a good friend of mine, but then he moved away and was only there, for instance, so all of a sudden I had to do it all again myself. And finding a co-organizer after it's hard, yeah, and I still haven't found one. But what I did is there are a lot of logistical challenges in putting a meetup together. And one of them is organizing food. Yeah, and I'm not very good at that. And it's just because everything needs to happen at the same time. It's organizing food. The other one is organizing the meetup labels, kind of the name tags. The other one is organizing speaker. That speaker you normally are in 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, but then on the day there's a lot of logistical things that kind of freak me out every time. And so I found someone who doesn't mind doing these things, like picking up the beverages or picking up the food or doing the greeting part at the meetup, because I myself are entrenched in the AV stuff, and always something happens there. So you kind of can concentrate there without neglecting all the other parts. And it seems that the ones who do that all of a sudden are kind of in that routine. Yeah, I show up a half an hour earlier and I help with the food. Or they come back and ask me, do you want me to be a greeter again? So it's kind of volunteering that ahead of time. And that makes me feel less stressed out on the day of the meetup. So the meetup is better when I'm not so stressed out. I have found someone who's preparing, because her contacts are better, to prepare one meetup in February, but it's so far out I haven't really bothered with it yet. But I'll see how that works out. The ones who help me on a constant basis, I have not yet gotten them to commit being a core organizer. The next step is still out there. So I'm working on, that's my challenge for this year, to kind of get really, and January is the meetup where I will not be there. You have to take yourself out of it to find out if it happens or it doesn't happen.
That is so important. Yeah, that was the time when I actually 4 years ago finally had my co-organizers truly step up. The 1 month when I was not there, and I'm like, well, let's see what happens. In summary, it was probably the best event of the year. Lesson learned to me: let go and let other people be in charge.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Has anybody ever embedded their meetup in, or the Tech for Good, in a nonprofit kind of organization? Like because the groups that I've approached, like the foundation and the big nonprofit educational organization here, it's called CVANG. I made everything, contact, blah, 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 send out emails, blah, blah. But it's a very competitive, because fund, and all they can think of is that we're stealing whatever from them. And so my thought is, what if I got this Tech for Good under their umbrella? Has anybody done that? Does it work? Like, or would it just become another sort of service that they pay half attention to? I don't know. I mean,
I think one of our fellow organizers in Pittsburgh, she is embedded into the nonprofit center at a university, and it's her job. It's part of her full-time job to organize the meetings, and that's actually brilliant. Yeah, but they are consulting nonprofit arm of a university. So, and they do brown bag lunches, and pretty much in a format where they go around the room and kind of talk about the technology challenges of the day, not so much with a firm speaker. Yeah, so that seems to be working out fine. She always has between 20 and 25 people there, I think.
So how do we find, I want to talk to her. Would there be, would there be a way to find out who she is so I can?
I know who she is. I can send you her,
okay,
yeah, it's Cindy Leonard in Pittsburgh. And I'll send you her email address.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't know how long the base center for nonprofit that does that actually at the university, but yeah.
But definitely there are other examples of that. So in Scotland, the One Digital Group is part of like the Scottish Voluntary Societies organization, and they host NetSquared as sort of part of their activities. Similarly, in Columbus, the Groundwork Group, which again is sort of the local voluntary sector support nonprofit, hosts NetSquared again because it sort of fits some of their mission and deliverables anyways, and they're like, oh, and if TechSoup's going to support us, awesome. And actually in Peterborough, one of Bruce's initial co-organizers was again tied to the local voluntary association support nonprofit.
So do you think it's better to just get a co-organizer, or do you think it would be, if they would take us in, like, do you think it's better to stay independent or to somehow fall into their?
That is a great question. I would preach caution. What I found is, if hosting a meetup becomes someone's part of their day job, because it's the part of the unfunded part of the day job, it often can become like one of the last priorities in that organization's work. So I would say for straight up sustainability, I actually find meetups hosted by a couple very passionate independent individuals tends to be more successful than groups which have been embedded. There are, of course, always exceptions, but I would say if there's a way for you to sort of find a middle point, which is to say, like, do you guys want to be our hosts? And we'll promote you out there, but like we'll do the majority of the promotional work. If you can find a way where you could, leverage some of what they've got, but not make sure that they're the barrier stopping you from doing something, then I think that could be a really great way to work. Any other questions? Because I know, you guys have already stayed over time. I know Carmen actually is coming as an organization, actually as part of the new TechSoup South Africa. So maybe Carmen, do you want to talk a little bit about why you guys decided that NetSquared was going to be a good fit for you? May not have. Maybe the audio's been lost there. All right, we'll keep going. Maybe she'll come back to us. Oh, Carmen, we almost have you. I don't hear you quite yet. So Carmen, if you can hear me, if you go down to the bottom left, you'll see there's a little up arrow next to the microphone. And if you click there, that's where you can select your audio source and just make sure that your mic's hooked up to the right into this webinar product. No. Sorry, Carmen, we don't have you yet. If you want to just type into the chat window, that might be our backup solution in the meantime. Oh, and Carmen, you're still texting to me privately. So if you just want to throw that to everyone. So in the meantime, let's see if we can get one more question in, and then we can sort of bring this to an end. Anyone else have any final questions or things that we didn't quite hit today in the discussion?
I have a question.
Take it.
Okay, my question, I know I go to a lot of nonprofit conferences because I work as an accountant in the nonprofit field. And I'm just curious, like, there's all kinds of organizations that sort of promote themselves to the nonprofit players. And is that ever been considered by I've never seen TechSoup or, any of these organizations. Like, they have every conference you go to, there's like, just, what are they called? You've been to them, where they all set up and they,
the booth.
Vendor booth.
Vendor booths, yeah. And I mean, it's just a thought because it's such a wonderful organization, so many wonderful things, but I'm just wondering if it's they just don't know or don't understand. I don't know. I mean, I've been in the nonprofit industry for years and years and years, and so it's just be cool to.
Yeah, I find that too, that a lot of people know TechSoup, but they don't know NetSquared.
Right.
And so I usually start out with, well, are you familiar with TechSoup? And then I say NetSquared is an initiative, a global initiative to help people use and put to use the technology that TechSoup provides. So
this is really interesting feedback for me because there has been this larger discussion, which is not going to happen quickly, around NetSquared branding. And maybe tying it more closely to TechSoup because it's easier for someone like Carmen, who works for the local TechSoup South Africa, because in many countries, TechSoup does have a strong reputation, whereas no one's ever heard of NetSquared. So it's something we're definitely super aware of. I don't have an immediate solution to that larger branding thing, but we're definitely talking about it in a way that we can do it that makes sense for organizers, but also protects the investment and autonomy of organizers who have had their own existing name, in some cases for 10 plus years. So I will have a meeting specifically on this global branding idea by the end of November. So you'll get news about that coming in probably in a couple of weeks as I try and schedule that call. The other part of that I think you guys were talking about was this, like, well, why are you not at more booths and conferences and like really like getting there in front of major nonprofit audiences? And I think the answer is it's quite expensive. So we do about 10 major conferences as TechSoup each year. And we've explored other options and continue to explore other options of how we can get there. So Birgit was a part of this TechSoup Ambassadors initiative that we spent the last 6 months playing with. And I think we learned a fair bit from there, but it didn't come through as like a sustained priority. But it was really a way for us to provide some training and some basic support so that way actually people like you guys as NetSquared organizers and TechSoup advocates in the community could potentially come and represent TechSoup at some of these conferences when it's closer to your community, because flying someone from San Francisco and all that, it just turns into a bit of a nightmare. And of course, there are hundreds of like statewide events every year. So I'll keep in touch with you more as that idea develops. But yeah, I totally hear you that it's a missed opportunity, but I don't have a great solution for it at the moment.
Yeah, another good thing that Eli mentioned, but not today, was that TechSoup is looking to actually also do email outreach to TechSoup members when there are events. Although what I've found is it needs a lot of lead time, and there comes the plan into place, the P word. So it seems that you need at least about a 6 week to 8 week lead time on that. Yeah, if it ever happens again. We did it sporadically on some of the Office 365 workshops that we did last year. Yeah, so that really worked out to have more people in there that haven't been there before, and some of them stayed. Yeah. So, but that would be that's certainly a missed opportunity, right?
Yeah,
there.
so let me actually talk about that, and because I've kept quiet about it until I felt really confident about my ability to talk about it. So I've it's been a number of years where I'm like, oh, TechSoup has this giant mailing list of nonprofits. Why aren't we promoting NetSquared new groups to those members? And the answer is dumb reasons that I could never quite figure out. The dumb reasons are solved. So right now, this is an opportunity I can only provide in the United States. And I haven't done a full promotion yet, but we've already sent out about 6 of them so far. So for new groups who have just started up, when they've got 3 upcoming events, I've got a quick process, a template, and it takes usually about 10 business days, so 2 weeks of notice. But I can send out an email to basically all the nonprofits in our list around a 50-mile radius of your events to help you launch your new event. I can't do this every month, but I've got a commitment that we can also do this on an annual basis. So basically at your 1-year anniversary, again, with me poking you in the ribs to get you to have 3 upcoming events, because that's how my template was built out, specifically to poke you in the ribs to have you doing more planning. I am able to continue to do a bit more email marketing support for you. And I'm really curious to see what the results of that are going to be, because it's really just started up basically since September 1st. But I now have a system, which means like we can get people going. So Birgit, once you got 3 events upcoming, poke me in the ribs and I will get something going for you, because I definitely want to get all of TechSoup members at your events.
Well, I'm glad I broke it up. I brought it up.
Yeah, but I've been shy about mentioning it because I failed at getting this thing set up for several years, but we fixed the problem. We have a process. They're fast, they're efficient, everything is good.
Okay. So when you say plan those out, you need to have them announced on Meetup. That's kind of the trigger,
I need
right?
basically a link to get you to. If you have 3 events with an RSVPable link on Meetup, and the first event in that 3-event series is at least 3 weeks out, okay, then because that gives me 2 weeks to get it into the promo system plus 1 week before the event. So I basically need 3 weeks before that. Then TechSoup has totally got your back and is going to go and harass all their members and tell them about the amazing in-person opportunities available to their members.
So cool.
Which is you guys.
All right. Well,
and I think yours is actually one of the first that went out. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, we've totally hit the end of time. Yeah, let's not torture you anymore. Birgit, give us final inspiration as we head out.
Keep up the awesome. Try hard. But I think and don't spend 20 hours on a meeting.
I'll try not to.
Yeah. Call me. And if you ever want to need a sounding board, I'm here for you. Yeah, just call me, ping me on Slack, and we set up a call.
Yeah, we're here to talk you off the ledge if you get in too deep.
Thank you. Thank you both.
It was awesome to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us. And you have an awesome day.
You too.
Fabulous. All the best. Thank you all. Catch you soon.
Bye.